operant we will discuss is the tact. The term tact comes from the phrase making contact with the environment and is often referred to as labeling. A tact is a verbal behavior that is controlled by a nonverbal antecedent and followed by a nonspecific consequence. Practically speaking, tacting behavior occurs when a child sees, hears, smells, tastes, touches, or feels something, then says what is seen, heard, smelled, tasted, touched, or felt, but does not receive it. Returning to the example with Julie, she notices a banana in a decorative bowl of artificial fruit on the table. Julie points to the banana and says, "Banana." Julie's mom responds by saying, "That's right, Julie, it's a banana." This is called a tact because Julie's verbal behavior is controlled by a nonverbal antecedent, the presence of a banana, and it is followed by a nonspecific consequence. That is, Julie does not get the item, the banana. Instead, she receives social praise from her mom. In the following video, you will see a young girl tact an object she sees while watching television.
It's an owl.
Yeah, that is an owl.
This is a tact because it is controlled by a nonverbal antecedent, the presence of an owl on the TV, and is followed by a nonspecific consequence, the therapist stating, "Yeah, that is an owl." A tact benefits the listener in that it gives the listener information about what the speaker is seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, smelling, or tasting. In this way, the development of a tact repertoire aids in the development of relationships and friendships. Teaching tacting behavior involves starting with simple response forms and then building the complexity of the response. In other words, when teaching tacting behavior, you will begin by teaching the child simple one-word tacts and then progress to teaching more and more complex tact frames. Let's look at an example of how this is done. Joey is learning to tact various objects and actions. Initially, his therapist teaches him to tact objects and actions using one-word tacts. Then his therapist teaches Joey to tact both actions and objects together, using a tact frame. Later, Joey learns to tact people, and his therapist begins to teach him to tact people, actions, and objects together with a more complex tact frame. Joey later learns to tact pronouns and prepositions, so his therapist then teaches Joey to add pronouns and prepositions to the tact frame. As you can see, each time Joey learns new concepts, such as pronouns and prepositions, his therapist incorporates the new concepts into his tact frames, building a stronger tact repertoire for Joey. In the CARD language curriculum, there are several lessons that develop tacting behavior. Let's look at some examples of lessons during which you may help a child develop tacting behavior. In the objects lesson, you may be asked to teach a child to tact or label items while looking at a book. In the actions lesson, you may be instructed to teach a child to tact the actions of toy figures during pretend play. In the people lesson, you may be asked to teach a child to tact people while looking through a family photo album. These are examples of basic tacts that have been incorporated into different lessons. As a child progresses through his or her program, the tacting skills taught progressively become more complex. Examples of more complex tacts that are taught include tacting an object's attribute, narrating a story by tacting the people, actions, emotions, and locations seen as the child looks at the pictures in a book, tacting an object that the child hears, tacting a characteristic of an item that the child tastes, or giving a compliment by tacting an aspect of another's work. Tacting behavior is often one of the most difficult verbal operants to develop in a child with autism. As you previously saw in the video, tacting behavior is followed by a nonspecific consequence, typically social praise. In some cases, nonspecific consequences may not be important or meaningful to a child with autism. In these situations, the nonspecific consequence, such as social praise, is initially paired with a consequence that is currently meaningful to the child, such as a pretzel or access to a favorite toy. Over time, as the child acquires a variety of tacts, the pretzel or other currently effective consequence is gradually removed until only the nonspecific consequence remains. Let's look at an example of how this might be accomplished with Carly. Carly has not eaten in the past 2 hours and has indicated a desire for pretzels to her therapist, Amy. Carly is beginning to learn to tact interesting objects in her environment. Amy takes Carly outside and helps her point to her neighbor's new dog and say dog. Amy then says, "Good job, Carly," and gives her a small pretzel. Over time, as Carly learns to independently tact interesting things in her environment, Amy slowly removes the pretzel until only the nonspecific consequence of social praise remains.